Okay. Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Semua pelajar diingatkan agar tidak mengaktifkan mikrofon sepanjang program berlangsung. Terima kasih. Tinggi-tinggi pohon cemara, setinggi tiang istana raja. Salam pembuka awal bicara. Selamat datang kepada semua. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera dan salam hormat. Yang dialu-alukan Dr. Faiza Muhammad Jamli, Pakar Pediatrik, Jabatan Pediatrik Hospital Serdang, yang dihormati Barisan Pensyarah Universiti Malaysia Terengganu, serta hadirin yang dikasihi sekalian. Selamat datang ke program Industrial Talk in the Classroom yang bertajuk 1000 Hari Pertama Kehidupan. Saya, Muhammad Haris Hakimi bin Mat Hatta, pelajar tahun 3 dari kursus Pemakanan Komuniti, selaku pengacara majlis bagi program pada hari ini. Hadirin yang dimuliakan, bagi memberkati majlis kita yang penuh bermakna pada hari ini, marilah kita sama-sama menadahkan tangan mengambilkan bacaan doa yang akan dibacakan oleh saudara Aiman Haikal bin Abdul Khalik. Majlis dengan segala hormatnya mempersilakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Al-Fatihah. A'udzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Allahumma innaka khalaqul azim, innaka sami'un alim, innaka ghafurur rahim, innaka rabbul arshil azim, innakal barul jawadul karim. Ya Allah, Engkaulah yang mempunyai segala kepujian. Engkaulah yang berhak menerima segala kepujian. Engkaulah yang berhak menerima segala kesyukuran. Engkaulah yang memiliki segala pemerintahan. Di tangan Engkau segala kebajikan. Kepada Engkaulah kembali segala urusan. Allahumma ya Karim ya Rahim. Cucurilah rahmat dan rahimmu ke atas majlis Industrial Talk in the Classroom yang bertajuk 1000 Hari Pertama Kehidupan. Ya fa'alu lima yurid, kami juga memohon perlindungan daripadamu dari segala perkara yang boleh mencacat celakan majlis kami dan daripada segala perkara yang melalaikan kami dari berbuat taat kepadamu. Kepadamu jua kami serah segala urusan kami. Rabbana alaika tawakkalna wa ilaika anabna wa ilaikal masir. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina azaban nar. Sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa sallim. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Amin, amin, ya Rabbal Alamin. Majlis merakamkan setinggi-tinggi perhargaan dan terima kasih atas bacaan doa itu tadi. Sidang hadirin sekalian, sedikit berdata mengenai penceramah kita pada hari ini. Beliau mula menuntut ilmu di Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia pada tahun 1996 dalam bidang Doctor of Medicine. Kemudian melanjutkan pelajaran pada peringkat master dalam bidang pediatrik di Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia pada tahun 2004. Dan pada tahun 2014 pula, beliau mengambil master dalam bidang Science in Allergic di Southampton. Kini, beliau merupakan seorang konsultan pediatrik di Hospital Serdang dan bidang yang diminati beliau ialah neonatal dan alergi. Tanpa membuang masa, majlis diteruskan lagi dengan menjemput dan mempersilakan penceramah kita pada hari ini, Dr. Faiza Muhammad Jamli untuk memberikan ceramah. Dipersilakan.
Terima kasih kepada pengurusi majlis. Can you all hear me?
Boleh, Dr.
Terima kasih. So, Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to everyone. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee from Fakulti Perikanan and Sains Makanan, Universiti Malaysia Terengganu, Dr. Asma Ali, and and for inviting me to speak on this webinar today. And as you all already know, the topic for today is first 1,000 days of life, or in Malay is 1,000 hari pertama kehidupan. Okay, allow me to speak in English because that's what I used to talk if giving such talk. Okay, and all the slide will be in English, but along the way I will might use Malay word for better understanding. Okay, let's start. Okay, first 1,000 days of life. Okay. So, what is first thousands of life? I'm sure everyone have heard about these words before. So the first thousands of life refer to a child's life right from the moment they are conceived. Means that the conceived period is when is the woman's egg, or what we call ovum in medical, is being fertilized by the sperm. Okay, that's the moment the first thousands days of life started. Okay, so this period continue until they have reached 2 years of age or 24 months. Okay. Okay. So in more detail, the first it consists of 270 days of pregnancy. So or intrauterine life, that is 9 months. Okay. Plus 365 days of the first year of life, plus 365 days of second year of life. So that's make it 100 days. Okay. So why is it the first 100 days are so important? Okay, people especially those who are in health side talking about it, especially those yang dealing with children. Okay, so why is it so important? So as we know, a healthy child is a determinant to the formation of our healthy generations. We know that healthy means good physical and mental conditions. Okay. So we need a healthy generation that can in the future they can lead our nations. So they can lead our nation to become successful. Okay. So we need a healthy generations. So the first 100 days is a critical period. We will say that, okay, it's a critical period for the growth and development of the child. Okay. And this is the time when their brain, their body, their immune system grows and develops significantly. Okay. So if you look at this timeline there here, okay, it's below. The fetus has 9 months. Okay, the period is here, 9 months in the intrauterine life. Okay, starting from day 0 on the conception of fertilizations, and the fetus rapidly growing from unrecognized structure. Initially, it's just round, small structures, and become a complete human structure within 9 months. Okay, so it's not fully developed. Okay, and following birth, they continue to rapidly grow until they can actually walk around 1 year old, and then later run, jump by 24 months of age. Okay, so if we look at this graph, so it shows a rapid growth. Okay, a time of rapid growth within the first 2 years of life. Okay, so the speed of rate of growth is very high in the first 2 years. If you look here, first 2 years, it peak with the speed of it reaches about 22 gram per day. Okay, so we cannot if in adult we cannot afford to have 20 gram per day or else become obese. Okay, so this period of growth it rapidly grows until this 2 years, and then the rate of growth decreases. Okay, so after 2 years, and later, and it become play 2, and later at the later age, around teenage time, is which related to the pubertal, they had another peak, but it's much lower than within the first 2 years. Okay, that's how we our growth velocity, what we call growth velocity over times. Okay, So back to the question again, why is the first 1,000 days is so important? Okay, so in Malaysia, recently it become a great concern because there's data that shows increase in the stunted growth among our children. Okay, it's not good. Okay, so what is stunted growth, or what we call stunting? Is when a child fail to grow to the proper length of age. Okay, they fail to grow, they fail to become tall. Okay, so in 2019, National Health and Mobility Survey showed that a total of 21.8% of children under the age of 5 are stunted by the effect of malnutrition. Okay, so what that is about, 1 in 4 children will have stunting in our country. Okay, and this example, we plot the growth on the growth charts, as we call growth charts, for those medical personnel. So if you see at birth, they can be normal, or at the lower end of the height, the length, we call length in the first 2 years, because they cannot still cannot stand. So over time, we look at the height did not achieve what it's supposed to be, and there will be lots of consequences on that. Okay, so one of these the scary effect of this stunting is shown in these pictures. So the effect on the brain. Okay, it's not the really true what the picture is inside our brain, but it a picture where it want to tell everyone that the brain is failed to grow. Okay, so this is just a diagrammatic expressions of this nutritional intentional. Okay, our brain doesn't look like that. Okay, so for that, our Ministry of Health of Malaysia has launched a program. Okay, I think in 2000 or 2019, in which it's called Anak Malaysia Sihat Program. So this program is actually to help the mother and children to get a more secure first 1,000 days. Okay, mainly about their nutrition. Okay, so it's a gold. The MOH look at this is a golden opportunity for the formation of healthy generations. If we tackle this at this stage, we can get a healthy generation in the future. Okay, so if you want to know further, you can read about this Anak Malaysia Sihat. There is a available website on the web page on the website. So why golden? We call it golden opportunity. Again, related to the brain. Okay, in the first 1,000 days, more than 1 million new neuron connection in the child brains are formed. Okay, so it's a crucial time for the brain growth. Okay, is and the sensory pathways such as sight, hearing are the first to develop in the brain, though the fetus are not using it at that time. Okay, and later when the child is born, it will follow by development of language skill and cognitive functions. Okay. Okay, so the golden time is also a time of significant development of other organ other than brain. Okay, other vital organs such as our metabolic organs, our kidney that serve as our metabolic to remove our metabolites from our body, as well as our liver. So there is time for them to grow. Okay, and also the development of our maturation of our GIT. Okay, in the early period of pregnancy is about 12 weeks. Okay, that's the time the maturation occurs. Okay, and later the cognitive development. Okay, it's very important. This cognitive related to our IQs and our speech, our behavior. Okay, and also this period also compass of development of our body compositions. Okay, so development of our muscles. Okay, how good is our muscles? How good? What are our body compositions? Okay. Okay. So it's a golden opportunity to reduce the risk of various non-communicable diseases such as suboptimal brain development, which we have a decreased cognitive ability and educations, reduce in IQs, okay, and later on also reduce the risk of people getting heart disease, stroke, and diabetes. It's all related to this first 100 days of life. Okay, so we can see that this golden time of first 1,000 of life has impact on later life health. Okay, if the child has optimal growth within this period, they will grow to become unhealthy adults. Whereas those with altered growth, maybe they become unhealthy in later life, or maybe they have disease. Okay. So it has been estimated from the study that most 20% of lifelong health can be explained by inherited genes. Okay, those inherited disease like thalassemia, what else are common, like even diabetes, can have about can have some percentage from because of genetic problem. Okay, and but since they say it's 20% of lifelong because of inherited genes, the rest of 80% is the risk is due to the environment. If environment is including our lifestyle, our nutrition, okay, and our mental health. Okay. So, what do you eat or experience during the first 100 days of life has lifelong consequence for your health. Okay. So, studies showed that optimal nutritional care in a child within the first 1,000 days of life can reduce the risk by 20% for low birth associated with low intelligence, and with good nutritional care within 100,000 days of life. Okay? And the risk of non-communicable disease such as heart disease, diabetes, hypertension can be reduced by 25%. So, in order to tackle the nutrition in this first 1,000 days of life, let's look at the component or stages of these critical days. Okay, there are three crucial stages that I mentioned before, which is we develop into pregnancy, infancy, and toddlerhood. Okay, infancy is from birth to 1 year old, whereas the toddlerhood is from 1 to 2. Okay, that is toddlerhood. So there is a lot of challenge in managing nutrition related to pregnancy. So the nutrition status of women before pregnancy determine the early embryo and placenta development, and also the body weight of the mother at the conception, whether they underweight, overweight. So this is related to nutrition, right? Okay. So this underweight and underweight puts of the mother puts pregnancy at risk and adversely affect later disease rise for the children. So and more so, the nutrition requirement are increased in pregnancy, particularly some vitamins and minerals, because of, of course this is needed higher compared to non-pregnancy state, because you are living for two. There is a new life in the body. Okay, and we always heard that mother usually eat for two, but rather they should actually think for two. They should actually careful in actually choosing what they eat. Okay, and they should actually educate themselves about the food and what are they supposed to take. Okay. So preparation before pregnancy is very important. Okay, we need to educate them. So of course, all married couple will dream of having a perfectly healthy offspring or child. Okay, so they need they as a father, future father and mother and fathers, they needs to give the best start. They should actually adopt a balanced diet and healthy lifestyle. Okay, no cigarettes, no alcohol. Adopt an active lifestyle like exercise, go for sports. Okay, and do not embark on those unhealthy lifestyle like clubbing at nights, okay, less sleep, okay, and they should have a good mental health, okay, and healthy diet before pregnancy is very important because it will supply the nutrient needed for formation of fetus in early pregnancy. That is the preparation of before the mother become pregnant. Okay. So back to our Pinggan Sihat Malaysia or Malaysian Healthy Plates. So I think everyone here is very well versed about this. So let's remind our women to practice healthy food intake. So by the time they got pregnant, they have a very healthy status. Okay. No, it's very difficult, but we can try our best to do this. Okay. So pregnancy. Okay. So pregnancy is actually divided into 3 stages or what we call trimesters. It's semesters, so it's 3 become trimesters. Okay. So the first trimester starting with blastocytes implantation, where the egg and the sperm fertilize and become blastocytes, then become embryo and they implanted in our uterus. And together with placenta formations and organ formations, so you can see at the early stage our organ already started to form. Okay. So second trimesters, most of the organs are already there actually. So, but they are not the growth is not optimal. So this is when this trimester is when the heart start to beat. Okay, the fetus they so-called practicing breathing, but though they are not getting oxygen from their own, they are getting from the mothers, and they were continuing organ development at the time. So by the time of the third trimester, which is from 28 to 40 weeks, there will be rapid increase in fat. At that time, the fetus is actually fully developed. If they happen to born at that time, they were born prematurely. After 28 weeks is actually most of the time we can actually save them. Okay. So pregnant women have to have proper nutrition during pregnancy. So healthy eating is critical because the energy and nutrition taken during the period are actually channeled to the fetus for rapid growth and development. The fetus has no other source of nutrition except from the mother. So the nutrient will get what the mother eat and what the mother drinks. Okay. So that is the nutrition is particularly important for the rapid growth of our central nervous system, our brain and our spinal cords. Okay. And during this pregnancy, the brain connections, okay, if the brain connection means that the neurons and the synapses are already begin to form. Okay. And the nerve tube or our spinal cord begins to form at 16 days after conceptions. This is very important to know, especially for those mothers. This is the importance of folic acids. So the folic acids that help for dividing of the cells and dividing of the cells is needed at a much higher level at this time. So at about the 8th week of pregnancy, the several nerve will branch out. Okay, so it means that from the neuron there is another connection with and synapse to the other neurons. Okay, and this actually form the basic nerve pathways. Okay, and this process will continue until birth when the brain grows to the size of 1/4 of an adult brain. Okay, so this is the pictures that shows. Okay, initially during the first 25 days, okay, it's just a tube-like structures, and it got three main divisions. Okay, the front one will develop our brain, the later part will grow to become our saraf tunjang, our spinal cord. Okay, So later on, it will divide, the cell will divide and grow, and more will be produced. And by 9 months, it appear like adult brain, but it's still small as compared to adult brain, and still has less neuron as compared to adult brain. Okay. So this is actually in microscopic pictures. Okay, this is microscopic pictures, shows that this is our cells, neuron, and this is the synapse. Okay, I just want to tell further about what I said just now. Okay, this is at newborn. Okay, this is in adult. Okay, it's a lots of network here. So network is the synapse, and then if anything happen, if the mother has poor nutrition or any other disease, or the baby, because of the improper development later, it might the development might arrest around this the earlier stage. Okay, so then if this happen, usually uh, the baby will become retarded. Okay, so during pregnancy, so we recommend healthy lifestyle. Okay, so no exercise, no smoking, no cigarettes. Okay, so the mother should be advised to have early checkup and regular antenatal follow-up, and must ensure eating, and to ensure the HB level at least 11 gram percent, and ensure weight gain in line with the pregnancy periods. Okay, then ensure good dental and oral health, because poor oral and dental health will lead to infection and will compromise the pregnancy. So nutrition requirement, they are advised to take supplement folic acid prior to pregnancy, and to prevent first trimester, and in the first trimester, to prevent neural tube defect. Okay, so this is defect at our spinal cord, where the spinal cord can be exposed, and the nerve won't be developed properly. So there is a condition called spina bifida. So you can actually have swelling over the spinal cord, uh, and usually we can detect this at birth. Okay? And it's actually not a good outcome for this baby. They can become paralyzed to the worst end, and can also affect the other organs in the body. And many countries actually recommended supplementation of vitamin D, and since many studies in the developing countries showed that many women in the reproductive age group has poor vitamin D status. This is pretty much related to the nutrition in those countries, and they need more ions, more iodines, okay, for the thyroid growth, and omega-3 fats. Okay, and of course this is very difficult. So most of the mothers did not have healthy eating, and in some countries they suggested a specific level of omega-3 fats, DHA, daily. And in some countries added vitamin A, B1, B2, and calcium. This is depend on where which countries. Okay, so we don't some country don't have any study that showed what are the levels of that deficient in their women. So following birth, okay, so we do look at four elements in baby that were born. Okay, so we do follow up them for physical growth, cognitive development, immune maturation, how they actually fight the infections, and how they tolerate their feed, so that their digestive maturations. Okay, so basically the physical growth, one cell at conception to 500 trillion cells at 3 years. So if your baby is born 3 kilos, by 1 year, we expect the baby to be 10 kilos. So they should have triple birth weight in the first year of life. So, and the cognitive development, 80% of adult brain is achieved by 3-year-old, and there will be 3 times increase in brain weight in the first 3 years. So you can see we are usually the child will be monitored with the brain, the head circumference. We will see the head circumference during the follow up. Okay, and usually by 3 years old, the child should be able to roughly learn 900 words. Okay, immune maturations. So immune maturation is very important for the child to fight infections. So it takes 2 years for a baby to acquire the most potent immune system. Okay, so for antibody production, the child usually will develop their own only after 6 months. Before that is actually all the protection is antibody from the mother. Okay. And so early life colonization of gut with bacteria is crucial for its development. Means that those, for example, if you're born through cesarean sections, so most of the babies does not have colonization of gut. You were born through vaginal. Usually, when they pass through the birth canal, they will acquire some bacteria that they will swallow some bacteria to the gut. That is good actually for early life colonizations. It's very crucial for our immune system. So when this they encounter a bacteria early in life, so their immune system slowly develop. Okay. Digestive, the last one is digestive system. So all babies is born with immature gut. So the digestive and absorptive cavity must be developed in early life. Okay, so we should introduce. So what should we introduce to the baby? Okay, so gradually. So the first food for the baby is always milk. Okay, we don't actually introduce others. Okay, so we found that the best for these babies are breastfeeding. Okay, so because the breast milk is the best food for the babies, or we call it superfood for babies. Okay, so breastfeeding is the way to feed babies. Okay, not formula. Okay, our World Health Organization and UNICEF recommend that a newborn child is exclusively breastfed for the first 6 months after birth, with breastfeeding continuing along with appropriate complementary food up to 2 years of age. Okay, so exclusively breastfeed for 6 months. Okay, so human milk or breast milk is very unique. Okay, they have very nutritive components. They have good proportion of fat, prebiotic, protein, lactose that's suitable for all babies to a mother. Okay, so they also have functional component as opposed to your formula feed. They don't have this immunology compounds such as antibody. They have antibody IgA. SIgA is a secretory IgA. So that's a very important component to fight infections, especially to our gut and our mucosa. Okay, and also lactoferrin, which also help to fight infections. Okay, and they also have long chain polysaturated fatty acids, hormones and growth factors. Okay, and human milk oligosaccharide that actually very important in prevention of early development of allergy. Okay, so human milk never formula milk can never actually mimic the human milk. Okay, so if you listen to all the milk company, they're adding all DAA, HAA. Is the what they actually added is not as the same as what in the human milk. Okay, they never can actually mimic the breast milk. Okay, so what are the benefits of breastfeeding? Has a lots of benefits. So it also has benefit for the mothers. So post delivery, it can help mother to have contraction of the uterus, so that can prevent bleeding post delivery. So it can play a central role in mobilizing fat stores, so the mother can return to pre-pregnancy weight. Okay? So, and it reset the maternal metabolism and reducing the mother's risk of metabolic disease later on. Okay, so and also it decreased the risk of breast and ovarian cancer, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. And breastfeeding is natural conception, so it can prevent pregnancy, early pregnancy. Okay, and it's safe cost. It's readily available and it's clean. Okay, you don't have to prepare anything. It's ever ready for future. So benefit for the babies. The breast milk supplies the best nutrition for babies. This one cannot be disputed. Okay, everybody know this. It contains nutrient in sufficient proportions. Even you are born premature, the best milk is actually the breast milk from the mother, because the requirement is can be actually get from the mother's milk. Okay, if they are born at 32 weeks, so the milk from the mother suitable for those born at 32 weeks. So it's very unique. Okay, the content change according to needs of growing baby. Okay? So breast milks, especially colostrum, which is the susu awal ibu, okay? Atau kita selalu dengar susu awal lembu kan? This is susu awal ibu. The yellowish milk that come out on the day after birth, the first milk, okay? That one contain a lot of antibody. Okay, it strengthens the baby immune system. It protects the baby from infection such as diarrhea, colds, and pneumonia. Okay, it's very good. Okay. So breast milk can also prevent various allergic problems such as asthma, eczema, and bloating in babies. Okay, and again, breast milk contain important nutrients needed for brain development. The fats that contain in breast milk is very suitable for metabolism in the brain, and it helps in improving your child intelligence. Not only that, it is not easily contaminated compared to other breastfeeding methods, which is of course your bottle feeding, your formula with bottle. Okay, so it you need to really really sterilize your bottle before you can give to your baby. And breast milk is easily obtained at the right temperature at all time. Therefore, it's easy. Okay, so it provide comfort and emotional security. It provide bonding. So when the mother is breastfed, it's provide an emotional support to the mother when they actually bond, looking at bond with the baby and look at the baby. So it's actually can give some emotional security to the mother and the baby. Okay. All right. In summary, the benefit, breastfeeding benefit, short term, stronger immune response. So it protects against gastrointestinal and respiratory infection and also allergy. And long term, lower incidence of obesity and diabetes, lower cholesterol and hypertension, and higher IQ. I think all mother wants to hear this higher IQ in their babies. Okay. So if you see a baby who has breast fat in the first year, usually they become very fat, what we call very fat and chubby. But that won't last long, according to, that won't last long. Okay, that's good. As opposed to when your baby is formula fat, okay, sometimes the fat continue until teenagers. Okay. So for that, Ministry of Health has organized and implemented various strategies in promoting breastfeeding. So I think you have heard about baby friendly hospital and baby friendly clinic initiative, mainly on baby friendly hospital initiative, BFHI. Okay, so for your information, all the hospital, government hospital in Malaysia is baby friendly hospital initiative. Okay. And there's also a few private hospitals. I think not many, but there is. So this baby-friendly hospital has a policy and staff that is committed to helping the success of breastfeeding to all the infants. So it's designed to protect, promote, and support. Okay, so they will provide environment that support the mother to breastfeed their children with breast milk, and provide a service that help mother breastfeed their children. So they also have a policy to protect this breastfeeding. So you go to government, or if you are a mother and go to plan to deliver in government hospital, he will promote the breastfeeding. They will try not to give formula feed to your baby. They will prevent you from giving teats to your baby, and they will help you actually to breastfeed. Okay, that is what government does to help the babies and during this crucial 1,000 days of life. Okay, so not to forget the maternal nutrition during the breastfeed. So of course the nutrition requirement are also increased in this breastfeeding woman, okay, compared to pregnant women. Okay, they need to give milk, so they need to get more nutrient. Okay, so the women are usually able to produce milk with adequate protein, fat, carbohydrate, and most mineral, even when their supply are nutrient unlimited. So whatever they have in their body, they will go through the breast milk. Okay, so maternal diet will influence the quality but not the quantity of fat in breast milk. Okay, so all those other vitamins, vitamin A, B1, B2, B12, D, iodine, omega, and others level on breast milk is always related to the maternal dietary intake. That's why we need to educate them also, not only during pregnancy, during breastfeeding, we need to educate them, because most of them usually they will nowadays they have a strict confinement. So they cannot drink more, they cannot eat certain things. So we have to tailor according what the mother needs. Okay. So weaning. So breast milk is not enough forever. Okay. So at 6 months, as recommended by WHO and UNICEF, you should start a complementary food. Okay. So what are the complementary foods? So complementary foods are term used for food that supplied other than breast milk after 6 months. And there's a lots of variety of food that can be give to the babies. Okay, so we start at 6 months, and the reason to start, as I said, the breastfeeding alone is sufficient to meet the increased nutrition requirement in rapidly growing child. So the first 6 months is enough, but not after that. Okay, and this is the time for us to introduce solid food with new taste and texture to develop eating habits later. Okay, slowly. Okay, so this development of healthy eating habits starts in the womb and continue in the early years. Okay, so starts in the womb, continues in the early years. So a lot of things, a lot of factors affect our food preference and behavior. So what are the flavor, the taste, what we call fluid sensory experience. Okay, so and the second one is solid food exposure, also related to the appearance, the taste, and the texture of the food, and mother and child interaction. So how they actually interact when giving the baby feed is a food is also affect the food preference and the behavior of the child. Okay. Okay. For development of healthy eating habits, from the what we gather is fruits tends to be better accepted than vegetables because of the taste and the innate liking for sweet taste. Okay, so that's why when we try to wean, try not to actually introduce sugar at the early stage. Okay, and variety or repetition is effective strategy to increase vegetable liking, means that we repeatedly actually expose the child to the vegetable. Okay, and those children who had delayed introduction to texture have been shown to be more fast eater. Okay? Because when you introduce solid they will alter their mind. This is a new things, okay? So those who have later introductions, they will want to have easy. So easy easy habit means that they want to easy to swallow that box, okay? Toddlers, the second year of life, okay? Nutrition needs in toddlers, if we look at the graph again, though the rapid increment of growth is not as high as in the first year or during the fetal life, toddlers still gain more than 50% in height and more than 20% in weight in just 1 year. Okay, that's equivalent to 70 kg adult putting 17 kg of weight in 1 year. Okay, we won't like to hear that because we don't want to be obese. They usually need up to 7 times more nutrients than adults. Is per kg. Okay, so therefore, with every spoon, a child has to eat significantly more nutrient than adult. Okay, if you get a spoon in adult, so maybe adult can just have a rice with a little bit of protein, but children needs more. Okay, they need especially the nutrients. Okay, they need more calcium to grow, especially for the bone to grow, and they more need essential fatty acids as compared to adults. This is pretty much needed, especially for brain. Okay, essential fatty acids. Okay, they also need more irons for them to build up hemoglobin and build up the blood. Nutritional needs in toddlers. This to stimulate their growth, these toddlers need to consume protein, fruit, vegetable, grain, and unsweetened milk while limiting them to intake of saturated fat and sugars. Okay, so please do not give them more chocolates or sugars. Okay, so those cakes and others. Okay. So this is to ensure the growth of the children to stay healthy and avoid they become obese. And studies have shown that 1 to 2 year old who are overweight will face overweight when they are 12-year-old by 5 times more than those with ideal weight. Okay, it's very dangerous for them to eat unhealthy at this time. So not to forget iron, as I said just now, they need more iron to build up more hemoglobin. Iron is the one of important nutrient during the period to support brain growth and other development. And inadequate intake and poor iron status is common across the globe, so we need to tackle this. Okay. And other issues in developing countries, we tend to give a child too much salts. Sometimes we introduce them to eat those chips and those chickadee twisties quite early. So later on, they have a risk of getting hypertension because they used to have high sodium in their body. And if they have too much saturated fat, they will expose to the risk of heart disease later in life. And too much sugars cause childhood obesity and also dental caries, which carries risk of infections. Okay, and poor health. And again, vitamin D is also usually not enough in all children in developing country. Okay, so I know it's not easy to deal. Okay, we always get these very challenging toddlers who came to our clinic with failure to thrive. Okay, stunting. Okay, so when we get further history from the parents, we got all this no phobia when they're very difficult to be introduced to a new food. They are very fussy, only wants to eat certain things. So at this when these problems, it's difficult, but mother has to be more more not selective, more have to be educate on more choices in what to do with their children. Okay, and so I've already at the end of my presentations. So my conclusion is the first 100 days offer an important opportunity to build a long-term health, and the right nutrition during this critical period is really matters. And we as professionals dealing with all these children should actually take our part, okay, in advising and them to actually to eat healthily. And the rapid growth and development during pregnancy, breastfeeding, weaning, and toddler lead to specific nutrition requirement during each of the stage. Okay. Therefore, so the first 1,000 days of life is very crucial. So we must ensure the mother and the child have access to optimal nutrition. So with that, I end my presentations. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, jadi sekarang saya akan buka kepada sesi soal jawab. Para pelajar yang ingin bertanyakan soalan boleh buka mic ataupun boleh type soalan anda di ruangan chat.
Assalamualaikum. Saya nak tanya, adakah coffee consumption okey untuk pregnant mother atau ia akan memberikan kesan tertentu at certain level?
Okay. So kalau kita ambil dalam kuantiti yang sedikit, it's okay, but not until kita become addicted to the coffee. Because dengan penggunaan caffeine yang berlebihan akan menyebabkan mother the heart rate of the mother beating very fast, so it can affect the baby as well. Okay, so it's not actually advisable. Okay, unless you can take in a small amount. I mean, not to become addicted to it. Okay, because it's also shown to have some effect to the babies.
Okey, Doktor. Terima kasih.
I know ramai orang actually addicted to coffee kan, especially those yang work dekat office. Okay, so kalau boleh masa pregnancy tu kena kurangkan penggunaan caffeine.
Dekat chat, Rufina tanya, Doktor, why does baby in Malaysia most likely to get jaundice? Is it common in other countries as well, Doktor?
Okay, it's actually common worldwide to get jaundice. Okay, so sebab jaundice ni ada banyak faktor. Okay, faktor maksud dia banyak sebab. Okay, so kadang-kadang darah ibu dengan bayi tak sesuai. So menyebabkan tidak balas antibody. So darah atau hemoglobin akan pecah. So the jaundice substance is actually from our blood. Okay, itu satu. Dua, actually very much related to the breastfeeding. Okay, so kenapa bukan sebab susu ibu, is disebabkan ke insufficient breast milk pada bayi tu. So bila kita kekurangan bayi kekurangan susu, ia akan menyebabkan the metabolism of the jaundice tu tersekat. Okay, so means that bila susu tak cukup, selalunya jaundice ni dia akan metabolize by liver. So liver dia akan keluar dekat gut and dia akan secreted from our body. So kalau tak cukup susu dalam means tak cukup volume fluids dalam body kita, so benda ni tak akan berlaku. So that's why dia become jaundice. So that's why we need to advise the mother to get a healthy eating. Banyak mother yang confinement dia kurangkan air, tak makan cukup secukupnya. So menyebabkan dia orang ni constipated. So tak produce enough susu. So the effect will be go to the baby. Okay. So banyak-banyak lagi sebab kenapa bayi kuning sebenarnya. So contohnya kalau ada bengkak dekat kepala masa lahir, kadang-kadang tak boleh nak dihalang benda tu. Prolong labor menyebabkan ada bengkak, ada macam-macam, ada ketulan darah sikit kat kulit. Itu boleh semua menyebabkan kuning. Okay. Ataupun penyakit-penyakit macam G6PD, kalau anyone pernah hear about G6PD, kita screen semua baby kita dekat Malaysia ni about G6PD. So bila G6PD dia senang. Ataupun kalau ada blood group yang very abnormal in the mother pun menyebabkan baby kuning sebenarnya. So it's actually a worldwide problem, but memang common dekat Malaysia untuk dapat kuning. Okay, kalau satu hari, kalau my ward, we have about 10 to 15 admissions because of kuning. Okay. So kebanyakan bayi memang kuning. Okay. Hampir 50% of the babies akan mengalami kuning. Okay. Tapi tak semua kuning tu harmful. Okay. So kadang-kadang bila later on dia kuning, mungkin disebabkan oleh susu ibu sendiri. Tapi that is very harmless dan kita tak buat apa-apa mengenai ini. Okay. So memang is a common problem. Okay. Saya not very familiar with bags ni, macam mana saya nak tengok the chat. Okay.
Okey, soalan seterusnya daripada Iza. Assalamualaikum doktor, saya ada soalan. Saya ada terbaca tentang sunning dan waktu tidur untuk kanak-kanak membantu mereka menjadi less picky eater. Adakah ia betul doktor?
Apa dia? Yang first tadi apa? Tidur
Dengan sunning, SUNNING.
Maknanya dedahkan pada matahari. Okay. So it's not proven actually tapi dengan macam sunning tu tak proven menyebabkan dia become fast eater. Okay. Prevent ke apa? Sorry again, soalan dia.
Adakah sunning dengan waktu tidur dapat membantu kanak-kanak menjadi less picky eater?
I think it's pretty much related to the environment. Okay, when the child is happy, go sunning outside. So you expose the child to the environment in a happy situation. So when you introduce the child become happy, so they easily accept apa benda yang you bagi pada dia. Okay, sama juga. If you sleep well, so you become healthy. So if you become healthy, your mental health also healthy. So it will affect to some point. So maybe they become less fussy for the food. Okay. So I think ada study yang buat pasal tu, tapi study semua tu tak ada cost, tak ada direct cost. Okay. It might related pada your punya health style. Okay. So of course, bila you have a child who is happy and you can actually and then they are not fussy usually. If they're happy and the mother dan father usually pandai tackle them, so of course they are not fussy.
Okey, untuk soalan seterusnya dari Siti Nur Atirah. Doktor, betul ke madu tak sesuai less than 2 years? Sebab kita biasakan tahnik masa lahir dengan madu dan kurma.
Tak less than 2 years. It's actually depends on the madu. Okay. So sometimes kita takut sikit dengan madu asli for doctors lah. We are actually a bit scared dengan penggunaan madu ni, especially those madu yang actually madu from hutan. What do you call that? Madu yang actually tak proses, because there is some bacteria yang boleh duduk dekat situ. Botulism nama dia. Okay. So patient akan datang dengan infection. Itu yang daripada madu hutan, okay? Yang dos yang what do we call that? Madu asli Madu
Tualang.
asli yang bukan tualang. Tualang tu daripada madu tualang ya. Dia yang itu kita takut. But definitely not less than 6 months ya. 6 months should be exclusively susu. Tak ada makanan lain selain pada susu. Okay. More than that, you must be a bit careful from 6 to 1 year old. More than that, you can actually introduce. Okay. Tak ada tak adalah rules tak boleh bagi langsung, tapi you have to be careful, especially those madu yang not being processed. Okay, so sebab kalau madu ni ada certain of them yang especially dari hutan mengenai bakteria yang macam boleh menyebabkan sawan, kita panggil botulism. So it's actually ada case yang terjadi. So betul kita recommend dia bila dia a bit bigger baru kita bagi madu. Okay.
Doktor,
Okay, soalan ha.
doktor,
Hmm?
excuse me.
Yes.
My name is Aiman and I have a question.
Hmm?
Why Malaysia suddenly experiencing a high prevalence of stunting among the children?
Actually,
So what are
bukan suddenly. It's actually has been there, but it's just that no data been collected before. Okay,
okay.
so yeah, so dulu-dulu tak betul, tak ada study yang betul-betul menunjukkan, tak ada orang buat survey and maybe ada survey tapi small survey, tapi ini macam nationwide dia buat survey dan it shows actually betul, many yang stunted actually.
Okay.
So bukan
Doktor, saya ada
suddenly.
soalan kedua.
Hmm.
Okay, doktor, sebagai bakal bapa nanti kan, apakah peranan untuk 1000 hari pertama kehidupan?
Bapa.
Ya betul. Peranan seorang bapa lah.
Macam saya tunjuk dekat slide tadi kan, bapa pun also memainkan peranan. So satu, of course bapa kena happykan mother kan. Okay. So
Betul.
that should have a good mental health. Okay. Dua, they should be eating healthily and good, have a good lifestyle. Okay. Father should not smoke. Okay. So smoking tu they affect, although mother is not smoking, they can become passive smoker. So passive smoker, the nicotine semua being absorbed to the body of the mother and actually can remain in the pre-pregnant woman. Okay, so it will affect when the woman getting pregnant. Okay, so it will affect. Okay, and then lagi the peranan father is actually to encourage the mother to exercise, kan, kena exercise sama-sama so that they become active. Okay, so passive mother is not good during pregnancy. Okay, they should not actually just sit down and lying down. Okay, during the pregnancy unless they have some certain conditions. Okay.
Okay, doktor. Terima kasih.
Okay, untuk soalan seterusnya daripada Fazlin. Dia kata, sorry kalau soalan ni luar topik sikit, melibatkan before pregnancy. Kalau kita buat perancangan, adakah morning pill akan bagi efek pada masa akan datang kalau kita ambil secara kerap?
So for the mother lah kan, affect to the mother. So yeah, oral contraceptives is actually not without side effects. Okay, of course dia perancang. So satu, dia kalau a woman ambil perancang, dia akan affect dia punya hormones in the body. Okay, so later if you want to get pregnant, perancang, so later dia memang mungkin kurang subur when they first stop tu. Maybe they have to wait few years baru tahap kesuburan dia akan balik kepada normal. Okay. Dua, dia punya risk is actually future risk. Dia ada risk untuk getting cancer. Okay, cancer breast, okay, cancer ovary, and beberapa cancer lain. Okay, so especially itulah breast. Okay, is known actually as a result of contraceptive agent. Okay, the hormone that produce tu. Sebab certain breast cancer ni dia actually related pada hormone dalam contraception tu. And also the woman can become obese kalau dia ambil perancang if they okay with it. Okay, if they're not careful they become obese because of the hormone effect.
Okay, untuk soalan seterusnya dari Siti Anissa. Assalamualaikum doktor. Ada tak tips kalau bayi tak nak makan?
bayi tak nak makan. So you have to be first, you have to be patient, okay? Patient, kena and kena tengok apa yang dia suka, okay? So you have to introduce you have to cuba banyak-banyak kali and tengok apa yang dia suka. So maybe you ended up bagi benda tu, tapi contohkan dia suka roti, so you have to actually varietykan dia, okay? Kena letak sesuatu, dah telur ke sikit, okay? So you kena cuba and tengok apa yang dia suka sebenarnya, okay? So it's difficult, memang banyak yang kita dapat dekat klinik macam ni, bayi tak nak makan, okay? So kita cuba, okay? So kita start at 6 months, kita cuba dengan apa? Dengan makanan yang kita selalu kisarkan, ya, kita selalu blendkan tu. So kita introduce lah, kalau tak suka yang ni, kita kata suka carrot, kita suka keledek. Tak suka kentang, kita cubalah apa yang dia suka, okay? So yang ni memang ada risk untuk dia become fussy, ya, sebab sometimes they are fussy, that's why they doesn't want to eat, okay? And they don't like the taste, the texture, okay? So maybe you boleh tukar dia punya texture, rather than macam contoh you nak bagi nasi dia tak nak, you cuba benda lain dulu, okay? Maybe roti is also carbohydrate, ya, not necessarily nasi. So I understand dalam kita punya community ni, especially Malay, dia kena makan nasi kan. Kalau tak makan nasi ni dia tak okay. So not necessary actually. You can replace dia dengan mie, dengan roti and others. Okay.
Okay, untuk soalan seterusnya dari Nur Akila. Assalamualaikum doktor, saya nak tanya, if waktu anak pertama ada GDM, adakah possible untuk anak kedua ada dapat juga GDM ni?
Usually GDM tu adalah gestational diabetes mellitus, atau apa kita panggil kencing manis waktu pregnant kan. So usually penyakit ni tak ada, kalau dia tak pregnant tak ada. So there is possibility dia dapat masa second, tapi kalau dia control betul-betul, especially masa dia tak pregnant, mungkin dia tak akan dapat. Tapi the risk of getting diabetes, ya, yang penyakit kencing manis bukan masa pregnant is higher actually when you have GDM. So kena control makan. So even diabetes actually bukanlah kita boleh prevent, sebab diabetes ni ada kaitan dengan genetik juga. So tapi with a good control, kita eat healthily, kita tengok portion yang kita makan, so it actually can control, sort of macam prevent the diabetes to become overt. Okay.
Okay, soalan seterusnya daripada Husna. Dia ada 2 soalan. Soalan pertama, apakah common effect kalau bayi tu tak consume breastfeed at least 6 bulan? Contohnya bulan pertama je dia ambil breastfeed dan bulan seterusnya dia ambil formula milk.
Kalau bayi tak ada, dia makan formula lah kan, first month tu. So it depends on the baby actually. Ada baby okay dengan formula. So certain baby tapi the nutrition is not enough. Okay, bukan tak enough, it's not as good. Bukan not enough, it's not as good as when you have breast milk. Okay. So banyak actually problem yang kita encounter dengan formula, macam contoh constipations, ya, banyak ya, bayi yang actually ada constipations dengan formula. So banyak juga berlaku kes-kes macam diarrhea, ya, banyak dapat infection actually bayi yang on formula. Okay, dapat diarrhea, dia banyaknya berkaitan dengan dengan pembasuhan botol susu tu, penjagaan botol susu yang tak berapa hygienik. Okay. And banyak juga kalau kita tengokkan later on, dia kita ada some gross survey lah dalam among pediatrician semua. Kita can observe in the ward when baby admitted untuk pneumonia, lung infection, kita dapati mereka ni actually tak exclusive breast milk. Okay, breastfeed for the first 6 months. Okay, itu yang memang kita nak ni. Sebab tu kita really promote about breast milk during this 1000 days of life, yang second half. Okay.
Excuse me, doktor. Saya nak tanya kan,
Hmm.
whether autism attention deficit dengan hyperactive disorder tu relate dengan 1000 days of crucial care.
So, autism. Autism ni kita tak tahu kenapa dia related, kenapa dia berlaku, sorry. Okay. Banyak postulation, banyak study, try to look what are the actually cause kenapa budak-budak ni dapat autism. So, it might be related. So, I tak boleh nak jawab soalan ni betul-betul. It might be related to apa dia experience in the first, during this first 1000 days of life. Okay. So, maybe ada yang cakap berkaitan dengan vaksin, okay, which is tak betul lah. So, memang dia ada related pada nutrition and environment, tapi kita tak tahu apa, kita tak boleh point to specific cause kenapa dia berlaku sebenarnya. Okay.
Okey, untuk soalan kedua daripada Husna, dia tanya, kan kita children start eat waktu 6 bulan dan kita tahu kita kena limitkanlah sugar intake dorang. Jadi kalau kita bagi baby ni, baby biscuit macam mana?
Baby biscuits tak banyak, dia punya sugar content actually ada. Dia ada, tapi you have to choose, okay? I know yang dulu-dulu punya, apa nama dia, memang yang ras tu, memang ada yang ada sweet sikit. So you have to actually, jangan bagi banyak-banyak, okay? Kalau boleh, try ada alternative, okay? So the best yang masa kita introduce, usually what we usually do in our culture is actually kita bagi dia orang kentang kan, blended atau blended rice kan, blended atau nestem yang tak ada sugar content, okay? So kalau boleh try to avoid because it's not good for dia punya healthy eating habits later, okay? They will usually kalau you introduce them sweet thing initially, memang dia akan tend to like sweet thing more later, okay?
Okey, soalan seterusnya daripada Wan Noizati. Saya nak tanya, kalau ibu mengandung disahkan positif COVID, adakah bagi kesan ataupun risk dekat baby dalam kandungan?
Okay. This COVID ni infection yang baru, okay? So kita among doctors actually kita masih tak tahu betul-betul about COVID ni. So kalau study ni just past 2 years kan, COVID 2019 end start kan. So baru 2 tahun wujudnya COVID ni. So banyak benda yang kita tak tahu lagi pasal COVID. Kalau kat early stage kita belum ada data yang tunjukkan apa-apa, mungkin dia boleh ada effect sebab banyak lagi kuman lain yang ada yang boleh affect bayi. So kadang-kadang bayi ni lahir dia ada berbagai-bagai kuman termasuk COVID, okay? So tapi yang kita nampak kan effect kepada baby selalunya related pada apa yang mak dia experience, okay? So kalau contoh macam mak dia dapat COVID yang teruk, ada radang paru-paru yang teruk. So doktor terpaksa keluarkan bayi dia. Kalau bayi dia dah lebih pada 28 minggu lah. Kalau kurang daripada tu selalu bayi tak boleh survive selalunya. 24 minggu sorry. So kalau mother dia mengalami hypoxia, you also faham semua kan? Hypoxia sejak COVID ni. So bila dia mengalami hypoxia, so bayi di dalam perut pun boleh mengalami hypoxia. So effect dia kepada kekurangan oksigen kepada bayi, which is can affect semua organ dalam badan dia, termasuk especially dia punya brain. Okay? So kita memang banyak experience those yang mother yang mendapat COVID yang teruk pada paru-paru. So pneumonia. Okay? So itu memang ada effect kepada bayi. Okay? Effect disebabkan kekurangan oksigen kepada di dalam ibu, effect daripada bayi. Bayi pun sama-sama dengan mak dia kekurangan oksigen. So selalunya bayi ni terpaksa dikeluarkan tak cukup bulan, so effect dia sangat teruk lah selalunya. Okay, kita lost few babies ya. My experience, I lost few babies because of the kekurangan oksigen dalam mother. Okay.
Okey, nak tanya Dr. Faiza. Doktor okey ke? Sebab banyak soalan lagi
Okay.
dekat chat ni.
Okay, tak apa. Dia sampai
Hot
pukul 12
topic
kan,
hari ni.
saya tengok. Saya okay lagi.
Okey, so soalan seterusnya daripada Iza. Assalamualaikum doktor. Macam mana ibu yang ada alergi makanan bagi enough nutrient dekat kandungan?
Ibu yang ada
Allergen makanan.
allergic.
Yes.
Maksud dia allergic ke?
Allergic.
Allergic kepada food.
Yes.
Apa soalan dia lagi? Ibu yang ada allergic, food allergy.
Bagi enough nutrient dekat kandungan.
Oh, okay. So, I rasa kalau ibu tu ada severe allergy pada food lah. So, of course kalau dia very choosy and tak tahu apa nak pilih makanan dia, of course dia boleh ada effect pada bayi dia kan. So, kalau macam contoh dia tak boleh makan protein lah, tak boleh makan ayam ke daging ke, dia allergic pada protein contohnya lah kan. Jarang lah orang ada allergic pada semua. Selalunya pada ayam je, pada daging je, pada ikan lah macam tu. Okay. So macam tak logik lah kalau dia audit semua protein. Contoh dia macam allergic pada ikan, okay? So dia boleh take ada sauce which is ayam, daging kan. So kalau dia allergic pada ikan tak semestinya dia allergic pada udang ke kan. Dekat situ pun ada sauce protein kan dekat situ. So dia kena pandai pilih makanan. So kalau macam dia tak sure, dia boleh actually consult dengan doktor, okay? So apa choice atau even dietitian ya. Dietitian pun ada dietitian yang yang manage allergy di mana dia orang boleh tanya apa yang choice dia tak boleh ambil ikan, apa yang dia tak boleh ambil. Contohnya macam kita tak boleh ambil ada orang allergic pada wheat flour tepung gandum kan. So dia ada banyak choice lain, tak seperti kalau dia nak makan kek. So dia boleh choose lah kek yang tak pakai flour, ada kek tak pakai flour kan. Okay. Contoh macam tu lah. So we have to choose. So of course kalau dia very rigid, tak nak makan semua benda-benda yang dirasa macam allergy, so of course dia akan of course the mother has a poor nutrient status kan. So of course dia boleh affect the baby. Itu yang penting 1000 days of life tu. So you must eat healthily so that the baby can thrive and grow. Okay? Well,
Okay, soalan seterusnya. Assalamualaikum doktor. Saya nak tanya, apakah cara terbaik untuk handle postmortem depression bagi new mother?
postmortem maksud dia
Postmortem depression bagi new mother.
maknanya bayi dia meninggal ke?
Itu tak sure. Sebab dia tak tahu
Postmortem
pun.
depression. Postpartum kot. Postpartum depression kot.
Rasanya kot.
Mungkin postpartum. Postmortem tu adalah bedah siasat. Okay, postpartum I rasa depression. So postpartum depression ni kita tak tahu siapa yang akan dapat. So selalunya berkaitan dengan mother yang macam ada emotional stress. Okay, so dia tak boleh cope lepas dia deliver. So ada bayi pula sentiasa menangis, sometimes it will just actually tip dia untuk jadi depressed. Okay, kita panggil maternal blues selalunya kan. So to tackle them, first kita kena ada support lah. Usually kita support the mother, okay. So bila panggil dia punya family kena support dia. Kalau dekat hospital, kita akan panggil family untuk support dia. Sebab usually this one dia started bila dia dah balik rumah selalunya, okay. So family dia kena support dia. So kalau dia macam jadi agresif and teruk, selalunya kita nasihatkan mereka supaya bawa dia family supaya dia bawa dia jumpa pakar lah. Selalu yang tackle benda-benda macam ni pakar psychiatry. Okay. So ada certain mother where actually they just need counselling. Okay. They just need support. Tapi the worst one sometimes they need a psychiatry and sometimes the psychiatry give them medicine for temporary lah. Okay. So the postpartum is actually a very difficult period for a mother. So they need a lot of support. Okay. Emotional support, physical support. Okay. Kena ada orang tolong je. Okay.
Okay, soalan seterusnya, saya nak tanya, betul ke mitos yang mengatakan bahawa wanita yang lepas bersalin ni mempunyai haid yang lebih teratur serta kurang period cramp dan pain?
Tak tahulah mitos ke apa. So certain orang ada orang dapat irregular, ada orang tak period for very long time, especially when they are breastfeed, and ada orang have a regular period. Okay. Tapi usually orang yang regular period tu selalunya dia akan back to regular period. Tapi tak semestinya jugalah kan. It depends. Dia tak mitos. Okay. Ada orang langsung tak ada period. Okay. Ada orang very irregular lepas tu. Okay. So it's not really true. Okay.
Okay, soalan seterusnya daripada Nurhanis Akila. For mums yang ada PCOS, will there be any effect on the baby?
Apa? PCOS?
PC,
PCOS ke? PCOS eh?
PCOS.
Polycystic ovarian syndrome. So dia tak ada efek pada bayi selalunya ya. Sebab polycystic ovarian syndrome ni actually penyakit di mana dia punya ovary banyak cyst. Okay, the ovum atau telur kat dalam tu dia menyebab dia macam dia become a cyst lah dekat dalam tu. So dia actually affect dengan tahap fertility. Dia tak affect actually kepada bayi sebenarnya. Okay. Dia banyak menyebabkan dia fail untuk dapatkan anak selalunya. Dia affect the fertility. Okay. So tak ada kaitan dengan bayi sebenarnya.
Okay, untuk soalan seterusnya daripada Nur Akila. Doktor, ada tips ke untuk baby yang susah tidur? Contohnya baru 20 ke 30 minit dah bangun. Tapi susu dah bagi, pampers dah tukar, perut pun tak kembung. Sebab dia kata tidur yang mencukupi membantu naikkan berat badan baby.
Itu betul, tidur mencukupi memang membantu. Tapi kena find kenapa ada benda yang menyebabkan bayi tu uncomfortable. Maybe dia berak ke, okay, dia buang air, pampers dia tak okay, atau environment dia tak sesuai, maybe the environment temperature tak sesuai. You have to look around and see apa yang menyebabkan the baby uncomfortable. And sometimes you rasa bayi dah cukup susu, tapi sebenarnya bayi tak cukup susu. Okay, so banyak faktor sebenarnya. So kena look around. So you ensure kalau bayi cukup susu tu selalu dia very contented and dia sleep. Okay. First factor selalunya susu lah. Susu tak cukup. Especially at the early kelahiran. Pada few days early masa baru lahir. So masa tu sebenarnya susu kita tu selalunya susu cukup untuk bayi, tapi pada masa tu bayi tak berapa establish dia punya breastfeeding tu. So kita rasa dia cukup. That's why selalu mother experience rasa macam cukup tapi sebenarnya tak cukup. Tapi let's say dia betul-betul dah cukup, cuba look for around, tengok apa benda lagi yang dia tak satisfied. Okay, so maybe panas sangat ke atau sejuk sangat ke, environment tu too noisy ke. So look around lah, tengok. Okay. Atau the last thing is kalau dia juga mungkin dia tak berapa sihat. Okay. Sometimes bayi dah tak berapa sihat menyebabkan dia tak okey nak tidur. Okay. Ada benda yang menyebabkan dia tak okey. Okay. So kalau macam tak boleh tidur sangat tu, tapi sometimes baby memang suka bangun tidur dia nak ni dia bangun. Okay. Alright.
Okay, untuk soalan seterusnya daripada Wan Izzati. Saya nak tanya, kalau perempuan yang have irregular period, adakah akan ada masalah untuk mengandung?
Betul, ada juga tak betul. Betul kalau irregular tu kena tengok apa sebab cause dia. Macam contoh PCOS kan, dia have very irregular period. So memang dia ada problem. So problem dia actually dia ada banyak cyst dekat dia punya ovary menyebabkan dia jadi irregular period dan dia ni. Okay. So ada juga orang irregular period tapi dia macam regular. Macam irregular tapi dia lambat dia punya kitaran head tu. So irregular macam tu mungkin susah, mungkin tak susah juga. So saya kata mungkin betul dan mungkin tak betul. Okay. Tapi kalau overall memang betul lah kalau irregular period ni kita tak boleh nak predict bila adalah masa yang kita subur, masa yang kita tak subur. So macam kalau orang yang merancang dia tak boleh nak predict lah benda-benda macam tu. Okay. Jawab ke? Tak boleh nak jawab in 100%. Tak ada jawapan yang 100%. Okay, dalam menjawab soalan macam tu. Okay, kena tengok apa menyebabkan dia irregular period tu.
Jadi para peserta ada lagi soalan ke yang ingin ditanyakan? Kita buka lagi beberapa soalan lagi lah. Boleh buka mic kalau malu. Kalau malu untuk buka mic boleh tulis di ruangan chat lah.
Doktor,
Hmm?
nama saya Adi Azizan. Saya nak tanya doktor, saya ada tengok baru ni satu video tentang dia try encourage father lah to handle the baby macam urut tapak kaki. Adakah benda tu betul doktor? Maksudnya berkesan benda tu macam urut tapak kaki baby untuk bagi dia punya kelancaran, dia punya apa ni? Dia punya berak apa semua. Is it?
So video tu mana you di mana you tengok dekat mana?
Saya keluar dekat media sosial saya tengok. So saya nak just confirmize lah benda tu betul ke doktor?
Sebab memang ada teknik urutan untuk bayi sebenarnya. Tapi dia ada cara yang betul lah. Dia ada cara dia lah. So apa memang kita dekat hospital-hospital ada buat lah teknik urutan untuk bayi. Selalunya bayi prematang dengan bayi matang yang term baby tak sama cara dia. Okay. So I'm not sure whether yang you tengok tu video yang yang berkaitan yang sama dengan apa teknik yang kita sarankan. So memang ada teknik urutan untuk bayi. Memang kita selalu ajar kepada parents yang selalu yang masuk dalam ward lah kan. Yang ada peluang untuk kita ajar. So
Function
memang
tu tak apa
okey untuk
doktor sebenarnya. Saya tengok macam tekan tapak kaki pakai ibu jari 20
untuk
kali.
improve
Something like that.
betul ada juga yang macam tu, tapi I tak tahu ada teknik yang you tengok tu ada teknik yang betul atau ada orang saja-saja tunjukkan teknik yang dia orang invent. Okay, so memang ada. So dia function dia actually untuk first actually promote, dia boleh promote growth, dia boleh promote development. Sebab bila you massage dia punya pengaliran darah tu lagi bagus. Okay, so dia boleh improve kelancaran darah dengan improve dia punya perkembangan. Okay. So it's quite good actually kalau you belajar. So I tak ada video nak cakap kat you kat mana side nak tengok lah. Tapi memang ada teknik urutan ya.
So biasanya macam kita bila dah anak, benda tu kita boleh belajar kan dengan misi ke dengan nurse masa dekat ward.
Boleh. Ramai nurse yang been trained actually mengajar benda ni. Tapi I'm
Sebab
not sure whether
saya nampak dekat luar negara macam western country, most of the time benda macam tu ada yang ayah yang buat instead of mak
boleh.
dia.
It's actually siapa-siapa je boleh buat sebenarnya teknik. Asalkan you belajar teknik yang betul. Actually father, of course lah, it's very helpful kalau father tolong mother buat. Okay? Takkan mother nak buat semua benda kan. Actually nenek ke siapa ke semua boleh buat teknik urutan tu.
Oh, that's one of the ni lah untuk encourage baby growth lah.
Okay. It's actually encourage blood flow, encourage bonding between you and baby. Okay? It's good. It's been shown that it improve development. Study yang salah seorang daripada kawan saya buat masa dia punya master. That was a long time ago actually.
Thank you Doctor. Thank you for answering my question.
Okay. Welcome.
Okay, soalan seterusnya daripada Nurul Anis. Saya nak tanya, betul ke kalau perempuan ada masalah keputihan yang teruk, akan ada masalah untuk mengandung?
Mungkin betul. Ini satu lagi soalan yang tak boleh nak jawab. Kena tengok kenapa dia ada keputihan. So saya advise siapa yang ada keputihan ni kena seek for medical advice. Okay, kena jumpa doktor and tengok kenapa dia mengalami keputihan yang banyak. Banyak sebab kenapa kita boleh mengalami keputihan lah actually. Salah satunya infection dekat saluran peranakan. Itu boleh of course dia akan boleh mengurangkan tahap kesuburan pada seseorang lah sebenarnya. Okay. So my advice is actually to see doctor and look for apa yang menyebabkan dia mengalami keputihan yang banyak.
Lagi ke peserta yang nak tanyakan soalan? Jangan malu, jangan segan, boleh je unmute mikrofon anda. Kalau malu boleh je chat tulis soalan di ruangan chat yang disediakan.
Dr. Faiza, saya nak tanya Asma.
Nah, okey.
Dah tak ada soalan orang nak tanya, saya tanya juga Dr. Faiza.
Okey.
Apakah maksimum umur maksimum umur yang dibenarkan bagi seorang ibu untuk mengandung lagi, sekiranya ini bukan kandungan pertama dia? Apakah had umur maksimum yang dibenarkan Dr. Faiza untuk mengandung? Dan sekiranya contohnya dah melebihi umur yang dibenarkan, so apakah risiko-risiko yang bakal ibu ataupun bakal bibi yang dalam perut ibu tersebut sekiranya melebihi had umur tersebut? Okey, Dr. Faiza, itu sahaja.
Sebenarnya tak ada had umur sebenarnya. Okey. Ramai actually kalau you tengok trends nowadays ramai yang kahwin lewat kan. Tak tahulah mungkin dah kurang dah sikit. Trends for the past 10 years tu macam trend dia macam kahwin lewat sikit. Okay. So banyak juga ibu yang fail to conceive actually. Awal ramai ended up dengan IVF tapi macam dia orang buat a bit late. Umur dah dekat 40s macam tu. Sebenarnya kita tak ada had umur sebenarnya tapi not advisable if you are more than dia dah panggil elderly gravida kalau you umur 40 and above, okay? So the more than that you are higher risk untuk dapat a lot of problem, okay? So masa pregnant maybe you don't have tak boleh nak you might have hypertension macam diabetes, dia akan aggravate especially you ada family history. So and then beside the disease masa you deliver high risk untuk you dapat problem besar which is postpartum hemorrhage, okay? Sebab you punya body dah old kan, so dia punya uterus tu contract, dia kalau lepas delivery tu dia punya contract, untuk contract tu dia macam less efficient compared to orang yang muda. So risk of pendarahan, kita panggil apa, postpartum hemorrhage, pendarahan lepas besar, postpartum hemorrhage kita panggil, okay? So is higher. So risk of mortality kat mother tu, okay? So risk of stroke juga higher, risk of bleeding from other side and other problem also higher. Semua yang penyakit-penyakit tu higher in pregnant, elderly pregnant woman. Okay? So as for the babies, the effect is actually according to apa yang mother ada. If usually mother macam ni ada hypertension, diabetes, so the effect to the baby tu macam banyak. Okay. So kalau especially kalau diabetes. Diabetes ni adalah satu penyakit, kita lebih gula kan. Gula di dalam pregnant woman tu dia macam racun kepada bayi. Okay. So dia boleh sekat development of the bayi. So kadang-kadang bila baby born, dia dapat penyakit jantung berlubang, okay? Sebab development of the jantung tu dia tak proper. So jantung berlubang, kadang-kadang kompleks jantung berlubang. So diabetes tu rencat juga perkembangan paru-paru. So paru-paru dia tak mature. You lahir at 30, macam dah dekat cukup bulan 37, tapi you punya paru-paru macam umur bayi kandungan 30. So kena matangkan paru-paru, bagi ubat matang paru-paru. So and banyaklah kalau diabetes ni banyak semua organ dia boleh affected. Kadang-kadang saraf dia pun boleh affected. So the gula tu macam racun, is a very toxic to the early life of embryo. So itulah kalau mother-mother yang tua ni selalu dia ada, kebanyakan mereka dia akan somehow dia boleh dapat diabetes, okay, and not to forget hypertension, okay. So they already at risk at the age untuk dapat hypertension. When they are pregnant they have higher risk, okay. So bayi akan dapat komplikasi atas apa yang mak dia dapat, okay. Tu tak include the nutrition status, the risk of the whether they get the good first 1,000 days tu, okay. So sebenarnya tak ada had umur. So kalau kita tengok dalam berita dekat mana yang buat IVF India, that mother is 50 something, almost 60 I think, dia dapat the first baby. So baby dia seems well lah kan at birth, okay. So they just worried that nobody going to take care of the baby later sebab dia very elderly, okay. So I think I'm not sure about kan ramai yang buat IVF sekarang ya. You all tahu kan IVF. So I tak sure whether dia ada had umur ke tak. Okay. So ramai yang actually yang tak ada anak suddenly ended up buat late decision to get pregnant a bit later. Yeah. So tapi dekat Malaysia kalau dah 40s kita panggil, kalau primary gravida elderly primate kan, 40 and ke atas. Okay Asma, Dr. Asma.
Doktor,
Okay, jelas doktor.
Hmm.
Doktor, saya nak last question daripada saya. Doktor,
Hmm.
actually saya rasa lelaki belum tahulah benda ni. Seeloknya jarak antara anak berapa doktor untuk ibu mengandung balik? Macam ada yang cakap 3 tahun, ada yang cakap 2 tahun, ada yang cakap
2 to 3
Caesar 3
years is
tahun.
okay.
So saya nak kena tahu macam at least good.
2-3 tahun okay. Not every year. That is poor spacing kita panggil.
Sebab
Yeah.
saya pernah jumpa kawan saya, kakak dia 5 orang anak dalam masa 5 tahun. Dia
Tu
lepas tu
poor
dia jadi macam
spacing.
mild stroke, something like that lah.
So the risk to the mother, risk of anemia, become anemic, and risk of dapat postpartum hemorrhage sebab uterus dia tak betul-betul okay before dia conceive again. So we don't advise very untuk mengandung every year actually.
So 2 to 3 years is the best decision lah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
faham. Sampai dia putus susu lah kiranya.
Sampai sampai anak tu besar kalau boleh kan, putus susu 2 years kan.
Faham.
At least.
Actually it's a good knowledge lah for a man.
Okay. Bagus.
Okey, maka berakhirlah kita punya sesi soal jawab. Terima kasih diucapkan kepada Dr. Faiza di atas perkongsian yang penuh bermakna sebentar tadi. Kini, saya menyerahkan pula majlis kepada Dr. Asma binti Ali, iaitu pensyarah Universiti Malaysia Terengganu, bagi menyampaikan sepatah dua kata. Majlis mempersilakan.
Okay, terima kasih kepada Haris sebagai moderator pada hari ini. Saya sebenarnya Dr. Faiza mewakili lagi 2 orang pensyarah, Dr. Khairul Tasmin dengan Dr. Nur Salihah. Kita ada 3 kursus pada hari ini, kursus pemakanan sepanjang hayat, kursus pemakanan komuniti dan kursus pemakanan terapi. Jadi semuanya berkaitan dengan pemakanan lah. Jadi saya ucapkan ribuan terima kasih daripada hujung hati kepada Dr. Faiza atas kesudian menerima jemputan kami di UMT ni, sebab saya rasa bukan senang untuk para pelajar dan juga saya bersama-sama dalam satu sesi untuk bersama-sama dengan doktor pakar. Okey, ini adalah bukan kita kata 1001 kehidupan saja, tetapi peluang 1 dan 1000 untuk kita semua bersama-sama dengan doktor pakar. Kalau kita pergi hospital nak jumpa doktor pakar kena beratur panjang, betul? Tapi ni doktor pakar ada bersama-sama dengan kita. So we can ask many questions dan saya dapati memang ramai bersoalan sebab dia bukan hanya berkait dengan ilmu kelas tetapi ilmu yang boleh diaplikasikan dalam kehidupan kita seterusnya. Terutama bakal pelajar-pelajar ni yang bakal jadi ibu, yang bakal jadi ayah. Betul Haris? Okay. Jadi saya rasa pelajar-pelajar yang ambil kursus pemakanan ini menjadi satu hot stuff lah, sebab kalau bapa dia ada ilmu yang secukupnya dah, dan kalau ibu dia pun dah ada ilmu secukupnya, dia dah tahu dah kalau dia kahwin apa yang dia perlu lakukan antara langkah-langkah awal sebelum mendapatkan zuriat. Sebab kita bukan sekadar untuk berkahwin, untuk berseronok sahaja, tetapi kita perlu ada ilmu pengetahuan yang cukup supaya anak yang bakal lahir itu cukup dari segi nutrisi dan juga perkepakaran yang berikutnya, sebab kita nak anak kita jadi anak yang ada kognitif yang sihat, ada fikiran yang sihat, tak ada pencemaran dari segi mental health dan seterusnya. Jadi saya mengucapkan ribuan terima kasihlah kepada Dr. Faiza, bukan setakat ilmu kelas yang kita dapat tapi ilmu kehidupan supaya dapat digunakan sehingga sepanjang hayat, dan moga-moga ilmu yang Dr. Faiza bagi kepada kita semua menjadi pahala buatnya. Okay. So saya rasa itu sahaja bagi ucapan ringkas daripada saya, dan saya ucapkan terima kasihlah kepada para pelajar yang sudi kekal sehingga ke hujung rancangan. Dan moga-moga kita dapat berjumpa lagi dengan Dr. Faiza di masa-masa akan datang. Semoga Dr. Faiza tak serik lah untuk bersama dengan kita semua.
InsyaAllah.
Faiza ni adalah kenalan sahabat lama saya semasa di Southampton. Kami sempat belajar bersama.
Asma housemate.
Housemate, roommate lagi.
Roommate lagi.
Alright. Okay. Itu saja daripada saya. Terima kasih kepada moderator dan Dr. Faiza.
Okay.
Okey, terima kasih kepada Dr. Asma di atas ucapan sebentar tadi. Sebelum majlis berakhir, bagi tanda kenang-kenangan, kita akan mengadakan sesi bergambar ringkas. Diminta semua pelajar untuk membuka kamera. Okey, semua dah ready? Okey, siapa lagi belum buka kamera? Boleh buka kamera. Okey, kalau semua dah bersedia. Okey, 1, 2, 3. Okey, next slide. 1, 2, 3. Dan satu lagi. 1, 2, 3. Okey, terima kasih. Okey, nampaknya masa mencuburi kita. Jutaan terima kasih diucapkan kepada Dr. Faizah kerana sudi meluangkan masa untuk bersama-sama kami dalam menjayakan event pada hari ini. Saya berharap dengan perkongsian dari Dr. Faizah sebentar tadi, sikit sebanyak dapat memberi manfaat kepada kita semua. Kami memohon maaf sekiranya terdapat kesalahan yang dilakukan oleh pihak kami selaku penganjur program kali ini. Sesungguhnya yang segala yang baik datangnya daripada Allah dan yang kilafnya datang daripada kami sendiri. Bunga dedap di atas para, anak dusun pasang pelita. Kalau tersilap tutur bicara, jemari disusun, maaf dipinta. Dengan berakhirnya pantun sebentar tadi, maka berakhirlah program pada hari ini. Sekian, terima kasih.
Terima kasih, Doktor.
Diminta para peserta jangan lupa isi kehadiran ya di ruangan chat.
Terima kasih, Doktor.
Sama-sama.
Terima kasih, Doktor.